private bankers, central bankers, politicians, and bureaucrats in the European Union and the US must be trying to outdo each other in a game of crazy. Over the last couple months, there's been just insane stories coming out from the European Central Bank, running the European Central Bank, banksters, saying that there's not enough inflation, that there has to be more inflation. And no doubt the European Union economic data, their inflation formulas are going to not show any inflation because that's how stagflate tax lie is. That's how governments get away with creating trillions more in new currency and credit units in just the last 12 to 14 months and creating insane stagflation and shrinkflation and hurting people's standard of living and then saying there's no inflation because people say it doesn't show up in the inflation data or it doesn't show up in the consumer price index. So on top of this craziness with new comments now, even more comments, because I covered this a month or two ago that there was comments that they needed more inflation. Now there's even more comments in just the last couple of weeks that there's not enough inflation. They have to do even more bond purchases and currency devaluation to try to get that, probably because the dollar index has been weak, because that means weaker dollar versus euro in the dollar tug of war. The dollar was getting awfully close to those 89 support levels in the last couple weeks before a tiny little rally, although it's starting to sputter out, looks like, on the rally. And then finally, you have in the last couple months, you have private bankers in Germany telling customers, don't deposit your cash here. That is one of the craziest things I've ever heard. And that is because these private bankers at these large banks, whether it's Commerzbank, JP Morgan, many of the other large banks, they get almost unlimited access to funds and reserves, the magic money tree. If they go to the casino, the over-the-counter derivatives casino, or they borrow in the repo market, or they borrow in the euro-dollar market and leverage up these trades, or they loan, stupidly, tens of billions of dollars to a hedge fund or family office, and then the hedge fund or family office loses the money, and it's time for another bailout because these large banks are too big to fail. So you have just insane policy decisions in terms of monetary policy and fiscal or tax policy from these central bankers, politicians, bureaucrats, and the private bankers at large banks are not any better. So it is going to be a competition for who can outdo each other on the craziness scale from big government and large corporations like banks that are too big to fail. And that's just going to be even more stagflate tax lie, more bailouts, unlimited funds to the hedge funds, the large hedge funds and the large banks and large corporations. And the share buybacks have even restarted. Meanwhile, in the real economy, I'm seeing lots of articles from the United Kingdom and Europe about how small businesses there have no cash flow. But there's plenty of cash at the banks. So much cash apparently that they don't even need depositor money because they have enough cash to go and gamble on leverage trades on stocks, bonds, currencies, and derivatives. Please don't forget to check out my Patreon. It is only $5 a month, and there are over 150 articles, charts, and audio podcasts behind the paywall on many interesting topics about investing in the economy, including specific companies and specific sectors, a lot of valuations back there, including 4 in the last 2 weeks, and a few of those articles took quite a few hours to research and write. So if you want to chip in and help keep the free content free and allow me to still pay my bills, please chip in $5 a month for my Patreon because I don't even get 1 cent per click on the Google AdWords revenues when people click on the ads.